Good evening, Skype Flat Stories. Hope you guys are good. Hope het gaan goed saam met julle. I didn't disappear. I'm still here. I'm very seldom live, but when I do go live, I've got some nice guests with me in the studio. I spoke to you guys earlier on about Kung Fu. Kung Fu was big on the Cape Flats. It has always been big on the Cape Flats, but we weren't real Kung Fu fighters. We watched movies and we thought we knew Kung Fu. But tonight with me in the studio, I've got real Kung Fu people. I think it's a sport that has been here for many years on this earth, on this planet. And I think, when we think of Kung Fu, we think of your Jackie Chan, your Bruce Lee, not karate. Karate, I think there's a difference between karate and Kung Fu, but we're going to talk more about it. But with me in the studio tonight, I've got Shifu M.J.L.I and his student with us, and they're going to talk about what it is that they do. Het hele gebied, ons is mense wat compete internationally in Kung Fu in Cape Town, people from the Cape Flats. So I don't know if you guys knew that, but tonight you're going to find out more about this sport and the discipline and what it brings, what it adds, what the value it adds to individual. So with me in the studio, I've got M.J.L.I. Welcome, MJ, Shifu, and
Hi, thanks, Stan. Thanks for having us.
welcome to Cape Flat Stories. This is an interesting topic tonight because we just know about MMA, karate, but we don't know we've got people in our community fighting on an international level. MJ, tell us more about your sport and your in your dojo.
Yeah, where to start? I think, Stan, we're going to need a series, eh? Yeah, but thanks for having us. Great to be on the Cape Flat Stories platform, the podcast. You're doing fantastic work, and you're helping to get the word out. I think that is most important. Kung Fu literally translates as energy.
Yeah.
It's not a word to describe Chinese martial arts. The word to describe Chinese martial arts is actually wushu. Wushu means military arts. But it was that very well-known guy, Bruce Lee. He is the one who popularized the term Kung Fu. Because when he got to America in the early 60s, he was obviously practicing Kung Fu, and there were Kung Fu schools in America already when he got there. And he started doing a couple of interviews on radio, in television, newspaper in America, and there was a lot of interest around who he was and what he was doing. And then he was asked one day, Bruce, what is this that you are doing? And then his answer was very simple, Kung Fu. And they said, oh, what is that? He says, Kung Fu means energy. So using your energy to achieve something positive, become successful, strive to work hard, make sacrifices. So a student who is at school, whether he's in Manenberg or Mitchell's Plain or Bonteheuwel or Langa or Guguletu, and despite those adverse conditions in his area, he knuckles down, he focuses, he goes to school, he stays away from antisocial behavior, and he gets to grade 12 and he writes his final exam and he gets accepted to university, because the belief must always be there, despite what people may think of you. And he achieves that grade 12 and he goes to university. That student can be said to have used their Kung Fu, their energy, to achieve something. So that young man in Guguletu or in Mitchell's Plain is ultimately a hero in our community. That, a young mom who's divorced, who has those two kids in Bonteheuwel, and she works hard, 2 shifts. She works weekends to take care of her kids, despite the fact that the husband walked out on her. The family is not taking care of her. She then uses her Kung Fu, her energy, to achieve for herself and her kids. She is the champion and the hero. So that's a broad way of actually explaining Kung Fu. But you mentioned names like Jackie Chan and Bruce Lee and Jet Li and Donnie Yen. That is all Kung Fu. And you rightfully said that there's a difference between Kung Fu and Karate. Kung Fu is Chinese martial arts. And those Kung Fu masters, their names that we've mentioned, they achieved success after many years of hard work and struggle and sacrifice. So they are not just movie stars, but they also became national, continental, and world champions before they got into the movies. So karate is Japanese martial arts, but essentially all the classical martial arts, karate, taekwondo, aikido, all of these classical martial arts stem from the mother. The mother of all martial arts in Asia is Kung Fu. And gradually, as countries started to claim their independence and they decided to break away, they took one part of Kung Fu with them. So you can actually say that karate is also Kung Fu. Aikido is also Kung Fu. Taekwondo is also Kung Fu. But long story short, where we stand, Kung Fu is Chinese martial arts, something that I'm very happy to have devoted, I mean, my 25th year as a professional. I thank God for allowing me to pursue this path. Yes, when I was a bit younger, I was very active in cricket, in rugby, soccer, athletics. My great-grandfather was the legendary Springbok rugby player, Gerry Brandt. He was the original boot before Nas Botha. You know, they whitewashed the All Blacks in the 1930s in New Zealand. They became the only Springbok side to ever do this, and they were classified as the Invincibles. So I am of mixed race. My late mother was a German and Turk by ethnicity, and she was classified as a white South African woman, but she married an Indian man, a man of color, and that naturally angered the apartheid regime, and they then punished her. They revoked her white citizenship and took away her home that she owned in Claremont because that was a whites-only area. And they then forced her to live in Mitchell's Plain. And that's the reason why for 7 years of my life, I lived on the Cape Flats and in Mitchell's Plain. But God gave me this amazing opportunity to go and train firstly in Cape Town, then go to China, train at the Shaolin Temple, and then to become a 6 times gold medalist, a 3 times Legends World Champion. And that came with a lot of hard work because I did not get the silver spoon. I had to work for whatever I wanted in life, and I'm proud of my background. And this young man that joins us on the podcast tonight, Sinawo Yola, is one of my senior students, and he is literally like my son. He was a student at Windsor High School, and I started working with youth about 7 years ago when I came back from the World Championship as part of my give back. And he was one of literally hundreds. And now, 7 years later, he is one of my senior students. He's studying mechanical engineering at CPUT, and he's the captain of my South African youth Kung Fu team. So he is also proving that despite the odds, despite what people think of you, despite where you come from, like me, you can achieve, you can do it. Set your mind to it, you become the real master.
M.J.L.I, you mentioned earlier on that, you know, before this, you played rugby, you played cricket, right? But when did it start for you? When did you decide, okay, today I'm going to do Kung Fu? Because obviously it had to start somewhere. You were obviously influenced by some person or people. Tell us more about that journey.
You know, I wrote about this in my book that we launched in 2019. So I was fortunate we launched the book in Cape Town, Johannesburg, Durban, Pretoria, and I actually spoke about my journey and why I chose Kung Fu, how I became a national athlete, a proteer, how I came to represent my country, and what I managed to not only achieve, but even the difficulties I needed to overcome in order to get to the top. So I wrote a lot about it. Of school-going age, I was very active in athletics, very active in cricket, very active in rugby and football. In fact, at one point, I thought of possibly making a career out of cricket. And I thought, you know what, the least I feel I'm capable of is to actually play for the Cobras and for Western Province. I played rugby right up until 17, 18 years of age. But my late grandfather saw, this natural agility and flexibility that I had, and so did my late dad. And my grandfather was a rigger who worked for Shell Oil. And he traveled to Hong Kong, Guangzhou in China, Taiwan, Chinese Taipei. And he would bring back, this was like in the late 80s, he would bring back these VHS movies, Into the Dragon, Fists of Fury, The Chinese Connection, Snake in the Eagle Shadow, Drunken Master, Jackie Chan, and he brought me back this black Kung Fu trouser and the Kung Fu shoes that looked like slippers back in the days that was synonymous with Bruce Lee. So that immediately kind of set off something in my mind, and I was very keen to pursue this. And then my dad saw the passion, and he got me to a martial arts school when I was of school going age. So I was doing martial arts training, on and off, on and off, on and off. And then obviously primary school, high school, a lot of focus on cricket, rugby, soccer, and athletics, because I excelled in all of these. But then I needed to make a choice. And once I completed grade 12, I felt that I needed to go to the home of Kung Fu, China. And, I believe that a lot of my drive and passion and motivation I got from my late mother, because I spoke to her about it. And I said, I want to go to the home of Kung Fu. I want to go to China. I want to go to the Shaolin Temple. And she said, by all means, but you commit yourself to studies also after matric and grade 12. And once you land in China and you find that the going gets tough, I gave you the name which translates as the chosen warrior. You are not going to cry like a baby. You are going to commit to this decision that you've made. And I won't lie, Stan, I won't lie. I mean, over the years, training in China, in my mind, I gave up more than 1,000 times. But I relentlessly pursued this. Many started with me, but they faded away. Like with Sinawo, we had hundreds who started with him, who were my students in the Western Cape. And now he still stands today. My son, who is 16, in his eighth year of training, Lukman Slami from Heathfield, still standing. Tishle Solani from Langa, still standing. And they were part of hundreds. So it proves that if you want to make a decision, you need to relentlessly pursue this. And you need to commit to doing the time. Nothing is going to replace hard work. If you're not prepared to do the time, you're not going to achieve. I was a young boy from Cape Town. I came from a disadvantaged background, but I had to work hard. But I got the opportunity to represent my country in China, Hong Kong, Indonesia, Mexico, the US, Turkey, all over the world. I've traveled, and I've met some amazing people along this journey, and some amazing opportunities. More than 33 gold medals, more than 9 silver, more than 8 bronze medals at World Championship and international competitions. So I think for me, it was about the decision that I made, and I'm happy that I actually chose the course of Kung Fu. Although I still follow cricket, I watch the Proteas, whether they're doing well or not, but we support all of our national teams. As we're supporting the Springboks at the World Cup now at the moment, Bafana not doing well, but we still support our national teams because they represent a nation of hope, of pride. And I know what that is like, to literally carry the aspirations of your nation on your shoulders. It's amazing. I mean, that literally gives you goosebumps every time.
So for you, you mentioned that you had to go live in China for a time, for periods, obviously for training purposes. How does this affect your life and also your family life? Because you mentioned you have a young son as well that's also following in your footsteps. Leaving Cape Town, South Africa for a while and to go train overseas, How did that get to you? Because you mentioned also that there was a few times where you wanted to give up that
Hmm.
journey. Just a little bit about it, because I think that for many people they want to know how was it in China, how did they accept you? Because you don't get easily accepted elsewhere, but how were you? How was the experience for you?
Stan, as I said, that in my mind, I probably gave up more than 1,000 times.
Mhm.
But I kept on keeping this uppermost in my mind. I had a burning desire to
Mhm.
represent my country at international level. I wanted to compete with and against the best in the world. I wanted
Mhm.
to go toe to toe, with and against the best in the world, because that is
Mhm.
where your metal actually gets tested.
Mhm.
You stop in your country, you don't go beyond the borders of South Africa, you are happy, and you're living literally in a Truman show where,
Mhm.
yeah, you feel you are good, everything is okay, you believe you are the man. No, you are not.
Yeah.
The moment you leave your country, your metal gets tested outside
Exactly.
of the confines of South Africa. So it was very difficult for me. And then obviously China, it's a huge country. Also, a multi-ethnic cultural diaspora. There are over
Mhm.
55 ethnicities in China. We tend to
Mhm.
look at a lot of the Asian countries in a one-dimensional manner. But when I
Yeah.
got to China, I saw the multi ethnicity cauldron of
Yeah.
so many different minority ethnic groups, majority ethnic groups traveling across the country. Huge. Going to the Shaolin Temple in the north
Mhm.
of China in Dengfeng.
Mhm.
Literally, this Shaolin Temple is perched on the mountains. It is an
Wow.
amazing experience. But you're up at
Mhm.
5 in the morning. You have to start training at 5:30 and you train for 8, 10, 12 hours a day. And your resilience actually gets tested. So every
Mhm.
day you are literally taken through your paces. You are
Mhm.
tired at the end of that day. You are sacrificing blood, sweat, tears. At the end of that day, you don't want to go back the following day because it's
Mhm.
literally up in the morning, eat, train, go back to your lodging. Then you have to reset the following morning, back and forth. And I was doing this
Mhm.
over a 6, 7 year period. So initially it
Wow.
was very tough. And then I got to travel across the country and really understand what cultural diversity was about. And that actually put it into perspective for me because then I started to appreciate more and more, what the cultural diversity dynamic is like in South Africa. So being in
Mhm.
China got me to appreciate
Yeah.
what it's like being a South African. And then,
Mhm.
the difficulties that we go through here, you get to see people living in the mountains, in villages, who never ever
Mhm.
even know what a cell phone signal is like. They've never
Mhm.
seen a laptop, in their
Yeah.
lives, but they're happy to
Mhm.
live this
Mhm.
rural lifestyle. People in their
Mhm.
80s, 90s, centurions,
Mm.
still very active, practicing martial arts. This was an amazing sight for me. And I had
Mhm.
to prepare myself for sacrifices because there were years uh, back home when my family was celebrating Eid. My parents were celebrating an anniversary. My
Mhm.
son was celebrating his birthday.
Mhm.
We were observing fast in the month of Ramadan. So many of
Mhm.
those key moments, I was not at home. So these were sacrifices I had to make, and these were sacrifices I was prepared to make in order for me to reach the long term goal. And it's something which you think about over the years. But generally, if you're not prepared to make these sacrifices, I can't see where you're actually going to go, Stan. You're going to
Yeah.
stay on the same place, and then you must just accept the normal 9 to 5, mundane, getting up
Yeah.
early in the morning, clocking at the office at 9, leaving at 5, and then just repeating that for the next 40, 50
Mhm.
years. And I couldn't
Yeah.
see myself doing that. Honestly, I couldn't.
MZ, just one question on it. You now went to a new place, a place that is new to you, the language barrier. How was it for you? Can you speak Chinese now? Was it part of the process? Because I think there is the question: if you go to a country where there's foreign, like a different language, how did that work for you?
我是玛丽简功夫的南非，我老是南非。Conversational Mandarin, yes, but it was very
Okay.
difficult, in the beginning. And then I gradually acclimatized. It took me a while. Because initially, many of my teachers were not speaking any English, so they would instruct in either Cantonese, which is a
Yeah.
very difficult dialect from the south. And then as time went by, the Chinese government made Mandarin available. It was mainly made available for us as foreign nationals traveling to China for martial arts training or studies or
Yeah.
doing business, etc. So that was very difficult, the language barrier. And slowly it took me a bit of time to acclimatize. And today I can understand and speak, the basic conversational Mandarin. I'm still getting there. And now doing my postgraduate in Chinese medicine, also I can
Wow.
actually see where this has helped me, along the way. But literally, I grew up as an introvert, not knowing that I would get to travel the world, that I would become a world champion,
Yeah.
that I would literally have many sons and daughters who are my students. I can be a
Wow.
young father to them, a mentor, a motivational speaker, an MC. I could write about my experiences in 2 books, which we launched in 2019, and the second one during COVID.
Yeah. Okay, let
I
me
was
just
not
add it
aware of all
quickly
of that.
again. Moving. I think there we go.
Uh,
Mm-mm. You you have mentioned also now something about medicine, studying it. Um, how are you doing there? Because I know you also have a little business, or you have a business that is running, that you are also currently selling, or giving advice on medicine. Just tell us more about that journey and your in your shop as well.
So, a couple of years ago, my current grandmaster, who is originally from China, Grandmaster Wang,
Yeah.
um, he encouraged me to go into studies and focus on Chinese medicine. I originally studied education and psychology here in South Africa. Also did media studies for 10 years, television and radio. And then he felt that I had an understanding of chi, energy flow, and he felt, I think, from that perspective, I should consider studying Chinese medicine. But that he mentioned to me in 2009 when I was in China and I wasn't interested. At that point, my concern was I'm a national athlete, I'm training to get a podium finish. I don't want to be bothered by any of this. Then he laughed and he told me, okay, we will speak a few years later. And then I eventually, a couple of years ago, I registered at the Center of Excellence in London, and I completed my first 3-year national diploma in Chinese medicine, focusing on acupuncture, cupping, moxibustion, acupressure,
Yeah.
massage, and now for the last 2 years now, I've been doing postgraduate studies through one of the top universities in China, the Zhejiang University in Hangzhou. So that's been an interesting journey for me, and I started seeing patients for acupuncture, for Chinese medicine, and later on in the year, I'll be going to China for a couple of weeks to do my clinical practice at some of
Wow.
the hospitals there. So I think that it's something which I never really expected, that I would find myself, focusing on, yet still training as an athlete, still representing my country.
Yes.
Maybe 7 to 10 years time, I'll be able to see patients on a full-time basis, and then perhaps then the wellness center and the clinic will be fully fledged and established. Because I'm even seeing patients in Johannesburg and Pretoria. So I think that is something that maybe happened organically, which my grandmaster whispered in my ear. Maybe he saw something which I didn't see, and I'm thankful to him for guiding me along that process. And he's also been very influential in my martial arts career. A lot of the gold and world championship titles that I'd won in the last 10 years can be attributed to him in a big way for having prepared me mentally, emotionally, psychologically, and I'm very thankful for his guidance. And now I get this opportunity to pass that on to my students as well, perhaps in a much younger mentorship capacity, because I'm not the silver fox with the long gray beard yet, but I think we'll get there one day. But I think if I can share this with my students now, which we've been doing over the last couple of years, it's a fantastic legacy for them actually to carry on with in the future.
Yes. MJ, and also a very exciting thing happening very soon is the tournament coming to Cape Town. Tell us more about
Mhm.
that journey. I think you're very excited about that because it's something where you can represent your country, and
Yes.
also have the best of the best here.
So, Stan, I want my student actually Sinawo,
Okay.
because he's the
Okay.
captain of the South African youth team. I want him to talk about the experiences they had. But early in March this year, we hosted the first Africa Youth Kung Fu tournament, where he was
Wow.
the captain of 48 youth athletes from South Africa, mainly from the Western
Okay.
Cape, and they
Mm-mm.
competed against a very strong team that came from Botswana. And there were also some athletes from Malawi, Zimbabwe, and Nigeria that competed at the tournament. It was the first time athletes from outside of South Africa crossed over
Mm.
the border to compete in South Africa,
Yeah.
and the mother city was the host to this tournament. We got good support from the city of Cape Town, also our minister in the province, Minister Andrew Maree. We got good support from them and a few local businesses. But I think it was an ideal opportunity for my students to compete
Mm-mm.
against athletes from outside of South Africa. Over the years,
Wow.
I've traveled to China, traveled all over the world, and I always
Mm.
wanted our African youth, to experience a professional,
Mm-mm.
enjoyable, safe environment that can actually play host to a competition, because many of
Mm-mm.
our youth in Africa, due to the dynamic,
Mm.
will never end up going to China. So if we
Correct.
can bring a small microscopic version of that here for
Mm.
them, then I think at least in some way we can introduce them to what the big
Mm-mm.
picture is like. So Sinawo, under his captaincy, they did very well. The South
Mm.
African youth team won no less than 21 gold medals, 4 silver
Okay.
and 4 bronze. And
Mm-mm.
Sinawo himself won 4 gold medals individually, along with my son also winning 5 gold medals,
Wow.
Lukman, one of my senior students, also winning about 3, 4 gold medals. So they did
Mm-mm.
extremely well, and they beat Botswana the Saturday night
Mm-mm.
in the finals. So now we are planning a bigger championship come the 2nd and 3rd of March next year, where
Mm-mm.
Cape Town will once again host the second Africa International Youth Kung Fu Championship,
Mm-mm.
where Sinawo will once again lead the South African youth team. And this time we're going to field a stronger South African
Mm-mm.
youth team, because we're doing trial competitions and we're identifying potential and talent, and we're bringing them
Mm-mm.
into the South African youth squad.
Mm-mm.
And under my coaching and Sinawo's captaincy and leadership, they are going to put their best foot forward, because we're doing
Mm-mm.
a trial now on the 14th of October at
Mm-mm.
Fairbairn College here in Goodwood. That trial is open to all of my students and
Mm-mm.
all youth aged between 10 and 19, whether they have martial arts experience or not. They're welcome to attend the trial. So we
Wow.
want to put the word out firstly,
Mm-mm.
with respect to that. And then we're doing a trial in Paarl, we're doing a trial in Caledon, and then we're
Mm.
also doing a trial in PE and 2 in Johannesburg. The sum
Yeah.
total of all of that, all these athletes that will be chosen, will converge on the mother city, and under Sinawo's captaincy, they will represent South Africa at the second Africa Youth Championship on the 2nd and 3rd of March at Fairbairn. The preliminary
Mm-mm.
will be taking place at Fairbairn
Mm-mm.
College in Goodwood, and then we're
Mm-mm.
identifying a big venue for the finals, which is Sunday, the 3rd of March. So we want to invite
Okay.
everyone in Cape Town and South Africa to come and
Mm-mm.
support the South African youth team, come and support
Yeah.
Sinawo and many of the athletes that are training three,
Mm-mm.
4 times a week, and see
Mm-mm.
what the future of Kung Fu is like in South Africa, because Most of my students are from Goodwood, Belleville, Guguletu, Langa, Kailicha, Mitchell's Plain, Paul, Caledon, and they are all going to come together. And the countries which we've invited, Botswana, Malawi, Mozambique, Zambia, Zimbabwe, Uganda, Rwanda, and Tanzania. We've also issued an invitation to Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Mexico, the US, and Hong Kong. And I think that's where we would like to add this international flavor. And I'm sure we can look at partnering with Cape Flat Stories, with your big platform that you have to get the word out, because we want the youth to come out in support of this championship, because they are going to be the future of martial arts in the country. If I could do it, and Sinawo is doing it, my son can do it, Sishle can do it, the kids from Paul and Mitchell's Plain, if they can do it, man, you can do it as well.
That's right. And I think this is what we need in our communities. We need a substance to replace gangsterism with. We need something that can replace gangsterism. And this is a good way to teach our youngsters discipline. So I'm a young man from Lavendale, and I'm very much interested in joining what you are talking about. Where do I start? Because I want tomorrow morning when I wake up, I want to make contact with Shifu, and I want to start joining and training with you guys, because there is obviously opportunity for me. This can become a career as well, a full-time career. Where do I start? Because we have young people that didn't finish school, but I can actually see our young people doing this, getting them from the street, getting this more into the schools, because we need these types of programs.
Absolutely. I mean, we've got part of the podcast, one of the products of a campaign that I started back in 2016. I came back from the World Championship, and I was invited to many schools, and there was this massive media campaign around, me becoming an undefeated third-time Legends World Champion. And then, things just snowballed. And I got invited to schools across the province and the country. And Sinawo was a learner at Windsor High School. And that was one of the schools that I visited. And then I thought in my mind, a lot of champions and professional athletes visit schools, and, we do these motivational talks, and I pitch up at your school with my gold medals, and I look all cool and come with the bells and whistles. So what happens when I leave? Then what? So I thought I would like something with substance, where I can literally do something. And then I told all the schools, I visited about 120 schools. I told them, you know what? I'm going to adopt 12 schools in the province. You provide the space and the learners. I will offer up my time free. And Western Cape Department of Cultural Affairs and Sport, through Minister Andrew Murray, she supported me and a few local businesses. And we started these training camps. And we started selecting youth, from across the province. And look at Sinawo in his 7th year. He's one of those products, So to answer your question earlier, if you're a young man from Lavender Hill and you perhaps are, tuned into the podcast now, and you wanting to know, okay, how can I get involved in Kungfu? Because trust me when I say, on the Cape Flats, in the province, in South Africa, man, we've got a lot of talent here, but we need to channelize that talent and that energy. And if we can channelize it in the correct direction and give our youth an alternative to antisocial behavior, staying away from drugs, gangsterism, because I grew up in Mitchell's Plain, but I had to make a conscientious choice to stay away from that, to make the correct decisions. If I could do it, you can also do it. I understand your dynamic. I know where you come from because I was there, but I made certain choices. You can do the same. And I didn't have massive support. That came afterwards. But I had to labor, put my head down, and work hard for long. So if you're that youngster in Lavender Hill or Mitchell's Plain or Kailicha or somewhere out in Paul or Caledon or Worcester, what I would suggest is your first point of call is to come to our youth trials competition on the 14th of October. because
Mm,
that's part of the preparation for the Africa Championship in March
mm,
next year. Whether you have martial arts experience or not, I'm opening
mm,
this up to youth age between 10 and 19. Come and
mm,
pitch. Show me what
mm,
you've got. Let's
mm,
see if we can unearth some more future champions, because I've
mm,
got about 6 students, and
mm.
Sinao is one of them. These young men stand to become pro-tier athletes next year when they
Wow.
go either to World Championship next year or an international championship outside of South Africa. That is a
Mm,
massive achievement, huge
mm,
achievement. So
yeah.
if we could help to produce a star like Sinawo, my son
Mm,
Saif who's 16, Sishle
mm,
Solani, Roderick from Langa also,
mm,
Iletu, Lelona, Chandre, Tracy, all these little girls from Bonteheuwel. If we can work
wow.
with them, we can work with you.
Definitely. I want to ask you now a couple of questions, if you don't mind. I just want to hear his experience, because I want him to sell this to the young people. We need our young people to buy into this. We need more of our children to participate in the sport. Sinalma, welcome to Cape Flat Stories. Tell us more about yourself.
Yeah. Well, my life is pretty simple. I live in
Mm,
Guguletu.
mm,
I've been born and raised in Guguletu my whole life. Yeah.
mm,
So as I was in primary school, I was a very energetic child, if I
mm,
can say. And
mm,
my passion at that time was dance. And as I've told my Shifu before, the one thing that you would never expect from me is that I was a ballerino at that time. So
mm.
my favorite passion at that time was ballet. And once I
Okay.
moved from ballet from grade 6, yeah, it
Mm,
was rugby and cricket.
mm,
So after the 2 years in rugby and cricket, I moved away from sport and
mm,
told myself, okay, maybe I'll give myself a shot at something else. But as a
yeah.
child, we all have that passion when we see Jackie Chan
Mm.
and Bruce Lee on television. We're like, yeah, I want to be like that one day. And so when my Shifu came up to Windsor High School when I was in grade 9, it was a huge boost because it was like this is my opportunity because I
Yeah.
myself want to be my version of Bruce Lee. And so
Mm,
with my Shifu, he opened up classes Tuesdays and Thursdays, sometimes even Saturdays. And so I was like,
mm.
after school, I'm not doing anything. What's the point of just hanging around? So I
Yeah.
went with my gut and went to the training sessions with my Shifu, and it's been a wild ride
Mm,
ever since. And even at the beginning of the year, when my Shifu named me as the captain of the South African youth team, I was honored
wow.
firstly, and secondly, I was
Wow.
completely shocked because
Mm,
I know that my Shifu saw something in me, and that made me
mm.
very
Okay. We just lost him there quickly. He seems to be excited. We just lost him quickly. And he seems to be, I mean, making him in charge of the team. Not the normal team, the team that will represent South Africa. I think that is a big responsibility, but also a big honor giving him that. So how did you I mean there were quite a few youngsters, but with him, did you see that leadership skills in him as you were busy training?
Stan, I did. And my wife
Mm-mm,
was the team manager at the time.
mm-mm,
And she mentioned this more and more, saying, this young boy, Sinawo Yola,
yeah,
is very dedicated, very motivated,
yeah,
has self-discipline. We should
mm,
focus on him.
yeah,
And he had over 100 kids that were training with him at Windsor. And
yeah,
he then went with our first squad to Hong Kong
mm-mm,
in 2018.
mm-mm,
And 2019, he went back with us to the same championship in Hong Kong in
mm,
China. And Sinao
oh,
actually outperformed most of the athletes of the previous year because he came
wow,
back a gold medalist and he had
mm,
won a silver medal. So that to
mm-mm,
me was an amazing achievement. But he had many who started with him. Like many started with me many years ago. They say, yeah, that guy MJ, I was with him and I was
Yeah.
better than him 25, 28, 30 years ago. Now you're right,
Yeah.
man. You were better than me, but where are you now? You're no
That's
longer
right.
there.
That's right.
You have to
Yeah.
do the time. So
Mm-mm.
Sinao is one of those. He
Mm.
stuck it out. He then went back, and I made him the captain of the youth team in
Mm.
2019 when we went to Hong
Mm.
Kong. And that's
Mm.
where he was given an opportunity to express his ability to show
Mm.
us what his leadership skills were like. And he did very well. So, winning gold and
Mm.
silver, he came back. We were obviously interrupted by COVID and lockdown. And then he came back in training with us last year. He went with
Mm.
us to Botswana for a youth championship there. Fantastically well, he performed there.
Mm.
Once again, 2 gold and 1 silver. And then I said, you
Mm.
know what, Sinao, this is your opportunity. You are going to lead the South African youth team. And yet he had many who started with him 7 years ago. And I
Mm.
believe
Yeah.
if he continues to listen and follow my instructions, which I know he will, I
Yes.
believe that Sinao Yola is going to
Mm.
become the Kungfu version of Sia Kulisi. That's what I
Wow.
believe.
Wow. 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 And I think that is so much faith in you. There is so much opportunity. Sinawa, how do you feel about this? Because I mean, it is quite a big responsibility for you. But I can also see you are very proud to represent.
Yeah. So I'm guessing anyone who's given that you feel like you've been given power, and with
Mm.
great power comes great responsibility.
That's right.
So that was my Spider-Man moment when my Shifu told me you are going to be the captain. I couldn't believe it. I
Mm.
acted. I put a brave face on it, and my Shifu saw it, so that I was um jumping up and down inside, but I
Yeah.
told myself I'm gonna keep a brave face. But I
Mm.
couldn't take all the credit for the tournament because even with my leadership skills, the team
Mm.
outperformed Botswana, and I was
Wow.
proud as a captain and a student of Shifu for us
Mm.
proving that no matter what, no matter what background you come from, if you
Mm.
have your discipline, if
Yeah.
you maintain your attributes, anything is
Mm.
achievable. And I'd like to
Wow.
thank my Shifu because I don't thank him enough for the experiences that he's given me. So
Mm.
yeah,
Just one question quickly to both of you. The communities that we come from, if we go out of our house or go training with a kung fu suit on or do some kung fu moves outside, people will think we are crazy because it is not very popular,
yeah.
sport in our community. How do you deal with that? Because I mean, it's something different. So if something is different and people don't understand it and they make assumptions, how do you deal with that?
I think you must answer first.
Yeah. So I think if I keep telling my Shifu when I don't make it to training, I'm never the one who's just going to be slacking. I'm going to
Mhm.
train myself at home, but I'm always going to make sure that there's time for me to go to training with my Shifu. And you
Wow.
should see the looks when people drive past or walk past in the streets. They look at me like I'm a madman because I know
Mhm.
I'm a madman when I'm in training. And you'd see like the youngsters when they see me, they're like, "Can we join you?" And I'm like, "If you
Wow.
can." Yeah,
Mhm.
so I realized at that point that the youth in our communities, they not just unaware of what happens, they don't
Mhm.
have the reach to
Yeah.
to these sports, but when they see
Mhm.
that there's an opportunity, they want to grab the ball with both hands. And so
Wow.
I keep telling my Shifu that when I hope it's not too soon, when he retires, that I will be taking on his role as
Mm.
the
Yeah.
role model for the youth and
Mhm.
continue his dream for raising up the youth with Kung Fu
Mm.
and martial arts in South Africa.
Yeah. Wow, wow. And I think that is what it is all about. Also, you wanting to become like your Shifu. I mean, we set
Yeah,
examples, and when you become like him, or you're already busy in the process, young people in the community is already looking up to you, and that is how we
yeah.
change the narrative. We become the role models. But I just want to ask you, Shifu, how does he feel? Because I mean, in our community, if you for him to explain, and you do kung fu. You can only do kung fu if you watch the movies, but you can't do it in real life.
Yeah.
How did you deal with it?
You know, Stan, my lesson
Mm,
that I've learned, and I am continuing to learn this lesson in Kung Fu, despite having become a world champion. A true master dwells within, whom only you can choose to liberate. So you can go from that shy, introverted little boy who grew up on the Cape Flats, who came from humble beginnings, to become a 3 times world champion, multiple gold medalist, publisher of books,
wow,
MC,
wow.
motivational speaker, coach, mentor, young father to young athletes in the Western Cape and South Africa. Man, anything and everything is possible. So over the years, I've become accustomed to the funny noises that people
Mm,
make when they meet me. I'm
yeah.
sometimes in the supermarket with my family, and a guy
Mm,
comes running up to me. He's like, M.J.L.I, if I hold this watermelon, are you able to use a 1 inch punch technique
yeah,
and split
yeah,
this watermelon in half? And here I
yeah.
am at the supermarket just
Mm,
buying bread, milk, and cereal with my
Yeah.
son and with my wife and my family. And I get
mm,
asked these types of things. Or, what's your diet? What's your regimen? What do you do? What
yeah,
sounds of Bruce Lee can you imitate, etc.?
yeah.
So, Tinao said it very beautifully.
Mm,
Choose not to become Bruce Lee. Choose
mm,
not to become Jet Li or
mm,
Jackie Chan, but
mm,
choose to become the best version of yourself. So, how will you ever know what your
mm,
potential is if you
mm,
don't take steps to look within and
mm,
then unearth that
mm,
potential, because that is the mastery at play. And I say again, that young single mom in Bonteheuwel and Mitchell's
yeah.
Plain and Hanover Park that goes to work early in the morning to take care of her kids,
Mm,
she is more of a champion than me
mm,
because she is actually doing the real business.
mm,
That young boy from Guguletu, despite what people think of him, he
yeah.
perseveres, he goes to school, he completes his matric, he ends up at university, despite adversity. That
Mm,
young man is the champion, not really me. So these role models, they exist all around you. And I think that's
wow.
what Kung Fu has actually taught me over the
Mm,
years, is this journey of life is an ever evolving one. What you don't realize at the outset, your
mm,
destiny will show you
mm,
how your journey and your path unfolds. I thought
mm,
about 7 to 10 years ago, I'm going to start
mm,
teaching kids Kung Fu. I was thinking about just the physical attributes, teaching them to
mm,
kick and punch, techniques, forms, kata, taulu, discipline.
mm,
But then, I started seeing that they confide in me as a young father,
mm,
mentorship, helping them with their schooling,
yeah.
different family commitments, seeing what I can do to support and assist, seeking my advice. Shifu, what do I do? I have my matric dance coming up. I want to do this. What do you think? I'm struggling with
Mm,
maths and physics. Can you help me? And these were things that I never thought about. And I was
mm,
thinking about the physical dimension only, teaching the martial arts. So we are
mm,
using an ancient Chinese methodology, which is
mm,
Kung Fu, to uplift our youth on the Cape Flats and in South Africa. So using something ancient that's over 3,000 years old
wow.
to improve the lives of our youth, I think that just shows a completely different dynamic. And it shows you how
Mm,
small the world has become.
mm, mm. Before we end up, there's questions I want to ask you just to summarize everything. Obviously, when you do the sport, you obviously have to have, like you mentioned earlier, a specific diet. You're gonna have to have a specific way of training because you train for as you're gonna fight. When you fight, you obviously train more, or do you train every day the same? How does your schedule work? Do you train every day, thrice a week? Because I mean, for you to stay on top of your game, you obviously have to put in a lot. How does that work for you?
For me, and from my perspective, I still train every day. The engine has to keep on running, man. Otherwise, it's going to stall on you at some point. So I still train every day. I will train in the morning, early evening. And then if I'm approaching a championship or a competition, depending on the degree of it, if it's world championship or international, um, it will create a specific dynamic, a blueprint for me. So if it's world championship, then I'll maybe be pushing 8, 10, 12 hours a day over an extended period so that I can literally feel primed when I leave South Africa, I land in the US or in China, wherever it may be, and I can feel that I'm ready. And I always tell myself that you train year round for many years, you made many sacrifices. You land in another country, thousands of miles away, very little support coming from South Africa because South Africans may not be there, but you carry the hopes and aspirations of a nation on your shoulders. You know, your country's flag, the national anthem. You resonate with all of these things as a professional. And then you realize that you get this one opportunity to represent your country. You know, it feels literally as if the entire universe has become silent and everyone focuses their attention on you. And I tell myself, don't squander those opportunities. You're not here to waste your time. You need to put your best foot forward because what you show in the competition arena and also outside of the championship while you are there, what you show people, that's the reflection they will get of South Africa and Kung Fu martial arts. So I always tend to think of this ambassadorial position that we have, that it's not just about going and looking all fly and cool and being on fleek and everything. No, you need to make sure that you put your best foot forward at all times. So for me, I still train every day. If I know I'm preparing for World Championship, and then a year out, well, before that, I will then start increasing my intensity and growing and growing and growing and growing and reaching momentum so that you are actually reaching such a velocity. When the time comes, you're ready. You can nail it.
And I think you, like you mentioned now, you need to be basically keep your engine idle because you don't want to come, in 3 months from now onwards, then you haven't trained. So I think what the young people need to remember here is when they do join the sport, they need to be disciplined. And training will be obviously on a regular basis. It's not something that, like you mentioned earlier, it's on and off thing. It should be a consistent thing. I think the consistency. But what I want to ask you, the last question, I saw you earlier on with the sword and with all those weapons. How long did it take for you? Because I know it takes quite a while for you to get to that level. I mean, I won't look for trouble with you. Even if I have a gun, I won't look for trouble with you.
Yeah, you know, those who carry licensed firearms, they still need 7 to 8 seconds to remove
Yeah.
that firearm from the holster, to make a
Yeah.
decision and pull the trigger. That's over
Yes.
enough time for me, honestly. I'm confident in the skills that God has blessed me with, and I've worked hard enough to know that I can defend myself and my family and those that I care about. Weapons is something that I had a major infatuation with. Um, and I was fortunate enough to learn the basic and most prominent weapons: broadsword, straight sword, king spear, staff, the chain, the nunchaku. These are weapons, and also the trisectional. So it's something that I struggled with in the beginning because it requires a lot of focus, a lot of dedication, a lot of hard work, because these weapons are not toys, because you literally hurt yourself while you are going through the introduction to the weapon. And the hand-eye coordination is extremely critical. So it takes a while, actually. But I was fortunate to learn from the best. And it's something that is actually part of my specialization, and that's the major weapons of the Kung Fu. Also, Sanda, Chinese kickboxing, that's our full contact. And then for professionals, we will also have a division known as True to Form. So, like those classical styles like the Tai Chi and the Drunken First and Eagle, those are actual styles that you learn the techniques and you apply it actually in full contact. But those are for specific athletes only. And then along the way, I was blessed to be introduced to Tai Chi because that really develops internal strength. It develops a very strong mind and it balances the mind, the body, the soul. And as you become older, it's a major resource that helps you actually with injury prevention and natural rehabilitation so that you can actually heal faster.
Shifu, M.J.L.I, thank you so much. Sinawa, thank you so much. We have now reached our hour. I want to say thank you to you guys. And like you mentioned correctly, we should maybe have a series of these conversations to get the youngsters interested. I don't see this just as a podcast. I see this as a life-changing podcast where many of our young people can join your gym or your dojo and learn themselves a skill. Because, like you've mentioned correctly, many of our children suffer from anger management problems, and I believe this can definitely help them to control themselves and the anger, but channeling it to a position where they can become world champions. With the help of you guys. So thank you so much. Anything last you guys want to add, want to say people must know? Did you want to add, MJ or Shinawa?
I think I'd like Sinawa also to end with something brief. But from my side, I want to thank you, Stan. You are the
Yes.
man. We're thankful to you. The Cape Flats Stories platform. We grateful to the opportunity that you provided us with to get the word out there. Um, I've had amazing opportunities in my life. I'm thankful to the Almighty. I'm thankful to my parents who have both passed on. And I ask the Almighty to bless them in abundance in the year after and for us to be together one day. And the legacy that I'm busy building, I want to leave this legacy behind with Sinawo, with my son, with Lukman, with Sishle, and the many, many students that I have. And I want to encourage youth and parents to come down to our youth trials taking place on the 14th of October at Fairbairn College in Goodwood. We're starting at 8 a.m. It's for those with martial arts experience and those without martial arts experience. So you're more than welcome. 10 to 19 years. We'll also be doing some workshops and training in between the competition while we are there. Sinawa will be leading a lot of the athletes also on the day. So I want to encourage people to please come down on the 14th of October. And then we're doing trials in Paarl, in Caledon, in Johannesburg, in PE. And then we're building stand for the big one. And we know we're going to get your support and your
No,
platform
definitely.
to help us get the word out. The second Africa
Definitely.
International Youth Kung Fu Championship happening in the mother city, 2nd, 3rd March 2024. Inawo and company, they are going to take on Africa over those 2 days, and they are
Wow.
going to do their best.
And we're going to be there. We're going to be there to support you guys all the way. That's a promise.
Yeah, thanks.
Shinawa, from your side?
I just have a message for the youth. Uh, even if you see your situation and you think that you can't achieve, just remember, I have fellow students and I myself am from Kubuletu, which in other people's eyes, even in your eyes, might be the most one of the most underprivileged areas in Cape Town. But it's not about
Wow.
the area, it's about your will. So if you fight through, you can achieve.
Awesome stuff. It's not where you come from, but it's where you are determined to go to.
Yeah.
Thank you so much,
Yeah.
M.J.L.I and Shinawa. We will definitely have another conversation just before your competitions. I'll be in contact with you. You can just remind me. And let's spread the sport on the Cape Flats in Cape Town. Let's make it big. Let's make it very big. So thank you so much. And I'll definitely check with you guys again soon.
Thank you, Stan. Shishir.
Thank you. Thank you. Guys, that was Sifu M.J.L.I en Shinawa from the dojo. En ek het iets geleer vanaand sinds jy moet so maar ek het ook al dinge se aan die goede aan. So ja. Guys, you need to support our children need to do sports. Our children need to be occupied. That's the reason why, they do things that they're not supposed to do because they don't know what to do with their time. And this is a brilliant sport. There's other sports as well, but you guys can definitely, follow MJ's page, M.J.L.I's page. He's on TikTok, he's on Facebook, he's also on Instagram. Follow him. I will post his poster for the tournament also now. I will ask him to send it to me and I'll post it. But please, guys, support the sport. Some of us are good in mathematics. I wasn't good in mathematics. Some of us are good in, running. But there's also yes opportunity for many of you to be good in something. These people they are traveling internationally. They compete against international, stars and athletes. And for me, that is big. A young man from Guguletu that is in charge of it. There is a captain of a team, and that is doing well, and that has been winning gold medals. That is big, and they are going there next year. So this is for me an lesson that wherever you live, if it's Levendale, if it's Kevda, if it's Parkwood, if it's Mitchells Plain, if it's Delft, don't limit yourself in other places as well. Don't limit yourself. Grow and grow within a new passion. So from my side, I want to say thank you for those that were watching. Much appreciated. Please do share this live. Please do follow M.J.L.I and the others. But yeah, let's do good things. Let's just be liquor, man. Just have a liquor vibe. So from my side, good evenings and God bless you guys. Cheers.